If you dance tango, I'll marry you, Arab millionaire mocks Waitress, but she dances like a pro. If you can dance this tango better than my fiancée, I'll marry you instead of her. The laughter that echoed through the crystal ballroom of the Meridian Hotel was deafening. Omar Nazir, a 45-year-old oil tycoon, had just made the most ridiculous proposal the 300 guests at his engagement party had ever heard. His fiancée, Isabella Rodriguez, a 28-year-old Venezuelan model, laughed as if she had heard the funniest joke in the world. Aisha Washington stood in the middle of the dance floor, holding the broken pieces of crystal from the tray she had dropped minutes earlier. The 35-year-old African-American waitress had been working at the luxury hotel in Manhattan for 3 years, always discreet, always efficient. But that night, one false move had caused dozens of glasses to shatter on the Italian marble, creating a noise that silenced the entire party. "You idiot!" Omar had shouted, his face red with anger and champagne. "Do you have any idea how much those glasses cost? Each one is worth more than your monthly salary." Isabella approached with a cruel smile. "Omar, dear, you should fire that woman on the spot. Someone like her has no place at a party like this." "You're right," replied Omar, looking at Aisha with contempt. The Syrian-American businessman had had a few too many glasses of wine and was feeling particularly cruel. His oil business was doing exceptionally well, his fiancée was envied by all the men present, and he felt on top of the world. Seeing that black woman humiliating herself on the floor only fueled his arrogance, typical of someone born with a silver spoon in his mouth. That's when Omar had a fun idea. The DJ had put on an Argentine tango in the background, and he decided to turn the humiliation into a spectacle. "Do you know how to dance?" Omar asked in a mocking tone that made several guests laugh. Aisha looked up, confused. For the past 3 years, she had been practically invisible in that hotel, serving New York's elite without ever drawing attention to herself. "I don't understand, sir," she replied in a low voice. "It's simple," said Omar, gesturing theatrically. "If you can dance this tango better than my beautiful fiancée, I'll marry you instead of her." The audience burst into laughter. The idea of an Arab millionaire marrying a black waitress seemed so absurd that no one took it seriously. "Omar, you're being ridiculous," said Isabella, still laughing. "This woman probably can't even walk properly, let alone dance the tango." But Aisha remained silent for a long moment, staring intently at Omar. There was something in her eyes that he couldn't quite identify. It wasn't fear, it wasn't humiliation. It was something much deeper, as if she were making a decision she had been holding on to for a long time. "I accept," Aisha said finally. The room fell completely silent. Omar blinked several times, thinking he had heard wrong. "What did you say?" "I accept your challenge," Aisha repeated, her voice now firm. "But there is one condition." Isabella laughed loudly. "A condition? Who do you think you are to impose conditions?" Aisha ignored Isabella completely and kept her eyes fixed on Omar. "If I dance better than her, you keep your word, even if it was said in jest." Omar looked around. All the guests were paying attention now, whispering among themselves. He couldn't back down without looking like a coward in front of all those important people. "All right," he said, convinced he was about to have some fun at that woman's expense. "But when you make a fool of yourself, I don't want to hear any excuses." What Omar couldn't imagine was that behind that seemingly ordinary waitress there was a story that would forever change the meaning of justice in that golden hall. If you're enjoying this story, don't forget to subscribe to the channel because what comes next will leave you speechless. Aisha nodded and walked to the center of the dance floor. Isabella followed her confidently. After all, she had studied dance during her teenage years and participated in a few music videos that required basic choreography. The confused but obedient DJ played Por una cabeza, a classic tango that everyone recognized immediately. Isabella started first, making movements that clearly demonstrated some knowledge of dance, but nothing exceptional. She swayed and struck sensual poses that drew some applause from the men in attendance. When it was Aisha's turn, something magical happened. She closed her eyes for a moment, took a deep breath, and when the music started again, she was no longer the same person. Her movements were fluid, precise, full of passion. She danced as if the music was part of her soul. Each step was perfectly synchronized with the rhythm. Her arms moved with a mesmerizing grace. Her legs performed spins and steps that seemed to defy gravity. The entire hall fell silent. Some people opened their mouths, unable to believe what they were seeing. Aisha wasn't just dancing. She was telling a story through every movement. A story of pain, passion, and resilience that touched the souls of those watching. When she finished, the silence lasted for almost a full minute. Then slowly, one person began to clap, then another. Within seconds, the entire hall was on its feet, applauding with genuine enthusiasm. Isabella was pale, clearly humiliated. Omar stood still, processing what he had just witnessed. "Impossible," he muttered. "Where did you learn to dance like that?" It was at that moment that Aisha's cell phone rang. She glanced at the screen and an almost imperceptible smile crossed her face before she answered. "Yes, Dr. Thompson," she said quietly, stepping away from the crowd. "Did you get the documents we asked for?" Omar tried to listen to the conversation, but he couldn't make out the words. When Aisha hung up, she turned to him with a completely different look on her face. It was no longer the submissive look of an employee. It was the look of someone who had something up their sleeve. "Where did I learn to dance?" Aisha repeated, her voice now firmer. "I learned at the Fernandez Academy, the most prestigious dance school in Buenos Aires. I studied there for 5 years before becoming the head instructor." The crowd whispered, confused. Omar frowned. "That's a lie," said Isabella, recovering from the shock. "If you're a professional dancer, why are you working as a waitress?" "Good question," said Aisha, taking something out of her apron pocket. It was a yellowed business card. "Because 7 years ago, my career was destroyed by false accusations of theft at a hotel. Very similar to this one." Omar felt a chill run down his spine. There was something familiar about that story. "The hotel was called the Golden Palms Resort in Miami," Aisha continued. "And the man who falsely accused me to protect his own son was a partner in an oil company." Omar's face paled visibly. Golden Palms Resort. He knew that name. "You're making this up," he said, but his voice no longer sounded so confident. "I'm making this up." Aisha smiled coldly. "Then maybe you don't remember the black dancer who taught your son Daniel how to tango for 3 months in 2017. The same one who was accused of stealing jewelry from a VIP guest, when in fact it was your precious little drug-addicted son who stole it." The silence in the hall was deafening. Omar was visibly shaken, his hands trembling slightly. I don't know what you're talking about," he said, but everyone could tell he was lying. "You don't know." Aisha laughed softly. "How strange. Because I have a very interesting recording of the phone conversation between you and the hotel manager, where you agreed to plant the jewelry in my closet." And it was at that moment that Omar realized he wasn't dealing with a simple waitress. He was dealing with someone who had carefully planned that meeting. Someone who had waited 7 long years for the right moment to settle the score. Recording. Omar tried to laugh, but the sound came out forced and nervous. "You're bluffing." Aisha took a small digital recorder out of her pocket. "Want to bet?" She pressed the button and Omar's unmistakable voice echoed through the hall sound system, which was still connected to the DJ's microphone. "Listen, Gerald, we need to resolve this quickly. My son may have made a mistake, but I can't let this tarnish our family reputation. Plant the jewelry in the dance teacher's locker. She's black, young, no one will question it. I'll transfer 50 grand to your offshore account today." The entire hall was shocked. Isabella put her hand over her mouth in horror. Several guests took out their cell phones and started recording. This is fake." Omar shouted desperately, sweat pouring down his forehead. Digital technology can fake anything. It sure can, Aisha agreed calmly. But what about this? She took another object out of her pocket, a flash drive. Bank transfers, emails, text messages. 7 years of evidence that I patiently collected. Oh, and there's more. Dr. Thompson, a 60-year-old black man in an impeccable suit, entered the room accompanied by 2 FBI agents. Dr. Thompson, said Aisha, smiling. You're just in time. Who is that man? Asked Omar, now visibly panicked. My lawyer, Aisha replied. And a former federal prosecutor specializing in money laundering. Funny how things connect, isn't it? When you destroyed my career, I needed alternative work. I started working as an assistant in your office. Dr. Thompson approached. Mr. Nazir, over the past 3 years, my client Aisha has meticulously documented your illegal activities while working at this hotel. Tax evasion, money laundering through fictitious oil contracts, bribery of government officials. This is persecution. Omar shouted. You can't prove anything. Actually, we can, said one of the FBI agents, showing a badge. Agent Davis. We have arrest and search warrants. Your accounts were frozen 2 hours ago. Omar staggered. My accounts? That's impossible. Aisha laughed coldly. Remember the invisible waitress who served your private meetings for the past 3 years? I recorded every conversation, photographed every document you left on the table, copied every flash drive you plugged into your laptop. And there's more, continued Dr. Thompson. We discovered that the Golden Palms Resort was a money laundering operation. Your son Daniel didn't just steal jewelry, he was selling drugs to VIP guests using the hotel as a distribution point. Isabella, who had remained silent, finally exploded. Omar, you told me you were a respectable businessman. I'm not marrying a criminal. She ripped off her engagement ring and threw it on the floor, where it shattered along with Omar's dreams. Isabella, wait. I can explain. Omar ran after her, but she was already leaving the hall with disgust written all over her face. There is no explanation for what you have done to me, said Aisha, her voice echoing through the microphone. You destroyed my career, my reputation, my dreams. You forced me to work as a waitress to survive. All to protect your drug-addicted son. Omar turned to her, desperate. Aisha, we can work this out. I have money, I can compensate you. With what money? Laughed Aisha. Your accounts are frozen. Your assets will be confiscated. Your oil company is under investigation. And you know what's best? All of this will be in the newspapers tomorrow. As if on cue, several journalists entered the hall. Apparently, Dr. Thompson had leaked the story to the press. Mr. Nazir, shouted a reporter. Is it true that you set up a money laundering scheme using luxury hotels? No comment. Omar tried to hide behind a pillar. What about the false accusations against the dance teacher? Insisted another journalist. Camera flashes lit up Omar's sweaty, desperate face. The man who minutes earlier had mocked a waitress was now being publicly humiliated, his life falling apart in real time. Agent Davis, said Dr. Thompson. I believe we have enough evidence to make the arrest. Omar Nazir, said the agent, approaching with handcuffs. You are under arrest for money laundering, tax evasion, bribery, and conspiracy to obstruct justice. Omar looked at Aisha one last time. Why did you wait so long? Aisha smiled, but her eyes were cold as ice. Because revenge is a dish best served cold. And I wanted to make sure that when you fell, it would be for good. As Omar was handcuffed and led away by the agents, Aisha remained in the center of the dance floor, surrounded by the wreckage of the party and the cameras of the journalists. For the first time in 7 years, she felt free. 6 months later, Aisha Washington stood on stage at Lincoln Center, receiving a 3-minute ovation. She had just performed as a guest prima ballerina with the American Ballet Theatre in a tango performance that left the audience ecstatic. In the months after Omar's arrest, Aisha's story spread nationwide. Dance producers, choreographers, and artistic directors who had seen the viral videos of her performance at the hotel began to seek her out. Job offers poured in daily. "She's the dance teacher who was wrongfully accused and then got revenge on the corrupt billionaire," people whispered as she walked through the streets of Manhattan. But Aisha didn't care about fame. She had regained something much more valuable, her dignity. Dr. Thompson approached her in her dressing room after the performance. Omar's last appeals were denied today. He was sentenced to 25 years in federal prison with no possibility of parole. Aisha nodded calmly. "And Daniel?" 12 years for drug trafficking and money laundering. The family's oil empire has been completely dismantled. The assets were auctioned off to pay the federal fines. "And Isabella?" Dr. Thompson smiled. "She married a music producer in Los Angeles. Apparently, she said in an interview that Omar was the worst decision of my life and Aisha saved me from a terrible future." Aisha chuckled softly. "Ironic. She called me inferior that night." "People change when they realize who really has class," said Dr. Thompson. "Speaking of which, a letter arrived for you today." He handed her an official envelope. Aisha opened it and her eyes filled with tears. "It's an offer from the Fernandez Academy in Buenos Aires," she said, emotionally. "They want me to return as their principal artistic director. Will you accept?" Aisha looked out the dressing room window at the lights of New York City. The city that had witnessed her humiliation now celebrated her triumph. "I'm still deciding. I've received an offer to open my own dance school here in Manhattan. A school that would offer full scholarships to young people from underserved communities. Use your experience to help others who have suffered injustice?" "Exactly. I want to teach not just dance, but resilience. I want to show these kids that no matter how powerful the people are who try to bring you down, if you are patient, smart, and determined, justice always finds a way." Dr. Thompson nodded approvingly. "Aisha, can I ask you a personal question?" "Sure." "Have you ever felt hatred toward Omar during these past 7 years?" Aisha thought for a moment. "At first, yes. A lot of hatred. But over time, I realized that hatred was destroying me from the inside. So I turned that hatred into determination, into strategy, into patience. And now, after seeing him arrested, now I feel sorry for him. He had everything, money, power, opportunities, and he chose to use it all to destroy innocent people. In the end, he destroyed himself." As she walked through the streets of Manhattan that night, Aisha reflected on her journey. She had lost 7 years of her life, but she had gained something more valuable, proof that her inner strength was unbreakable. As she passed the Meridian Hotel, she saw a sign, "Under new management." Omar had lost his stake in the hotel as part of the federal seizure. The night manager recognized her and approached. "Miss Washington, what an honor to have you here. We would like to offer you our presidential suite free of charge whenever you wish." Aisha smiled politely. "Thank you, but that won't be necessary. I have my own home now." And it was true. With the civil settlement money she had won from Omar, she had bought a spacious loft in Soho, which she was converting into a dance studio. 3 months later, the Washington Dance Academy opened its doors. On opening day, dozens of young people from disadvantaged communities signed up for free classes. Aisha saw in their eyes the same passion for dance that she had had at age 20. During the opening ceremony, a reporter asked, "Ms. Washington, what advice would you give to people who have faced similar injustices?" Aisha thought carefully before responding, "Don't let bitterness consume you. Use the pain as fuel to become better. The best revenge isn't destroying those who hurt us. It's building something so beautiful and powerful that it renders what they did to us irrelevant. If you could talk to Omar today, what would you say? I would say, thank you. Because by trying to break me, you forced me to discover a strength I didn't even know I had. You may have taken 7 years from me, but you gave me a lifetime of purpose. As the camera recorded her final words, Aisha looked at the young dancers practicing behind her. She had turned her greatest defeat into the sweetest victory possible. Omar tried to destroy Aisha, but ended up destroying himself. Aisha learned that true revenge isn't about repaying the damage done to you. It's about achieving the success your enemies could never imagine. If you enjoyed this story of overcoming adversity and justice, leave a like and subscribe to the channel for more inspiring stories that show that, in the end, the truth always wins.